Good evening, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Sherwood Island State Park and site of Connecticut's Living Memorial to 9/11. My name is Brian Mattiello and I'm the former director of the Office of Family Support 9/11. And it's my honor and privilege once again to serve as MC for this evening's ceremony. Frankly, at this moment, there's no place that I'd rather be. On behalf of Governor Ned Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz, I'd like to extend a warm greetings to state and local officials present, including Senator Richard Blumenthal, Congressman Jim Himes, members of the clergy, members of the public, and most especially to the family members and survivors with whom we aim to comfort through this service as we approach this 18th anniversary of 9/11. Two of those family members, Brad Bullis and Chris Vadas, once again deserve recognition for the leadership that they brought forth in support of this service. And Brad and Chris, on behalf of the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much. In preparing for this anniversary, I turned to a quote that's next to my computer at work. I've cited it often and have repeated the words here in years past, but it's worth repeating, and it reads, "Good must flow in the wake of tragedy, and the greater the tragedy, the more good that must flow." It was written by a family member of Connecticut who lost his brother at the World Trade Center. And those words are as powerful and true when they were written 18 years ago as they are today. And while each anniversary carries its own power, its own set of feelings, and its own reflection point, there is a deep commonality that runs through each occasion that we mark this event. One, we are reminded of what we lost and who we lost. Two, we are reminded that we are forever connected to each other by an event in time. And three, that we are reminded that we carry a responsibility to ensure good continues to flow in the wake of tragedy. I could live to be 1,000, and what happened on 9/11 will never make sense to me. I could live to be 1,000 and still wonder how humankind can cause such destruction and despair. But it's also the case that I could live to be 1,000 and remain in awe over the humanity and human spirit that was inspired by the event in the days, weeks, months, and years that followed. And I could live to be 1,000. And the family members and survivors that are in front of me will forever move me. Each of you carrying the greatest burden, picking up most of the pieces since 9/11, and yet you stand as rocks today. You are special, so much so that 18 years out, 9/11 does not belong to the tragedy. It belongs to the good, the human resiliency, the enduring will, the kindness and the courage and the compassion that you have displayed. May this occasion, this anniversary, the memories of your loved ones, this ceremony, and the connections between and among us lift each of you, even in the smallest of measure. And may it impel more good in the weeks and months and years ahead. Let us commence. For the opening prayer, Rabbi Rachel Behrman of the Temple B'nai in Georgetown, Connecticut. Rabbi.
God of the survivor, God of the mourner and the witness, grant solace and peace to those still held by physical, emotional, and spiritual distress. Bind their wounds with your steadfast love. Lift them on your wings of kindness and grace. We ask that you bless those who have found peace. We ask that you bless those who are without tranquility. We ask that you bless those who speak and those who stay silent. We ask that you bless those who have healed and those who suffer. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, source of strength for survivors of violence and tragedy in every land and in every age. Blessed are you, our rock, source of hope and comfort. Creator and shelter of all, we pray to you tonight. We ask that you grant a perfect rest under your tabernacle of peace to those who died in the 9/11 attacks on the United States. We ask that you remember the works of their hands and the messages of their hearts, that you grant their families peace and comfort for your name's sake. and for the sake of those who perished. We ask that you bring an end to violence and terror speedily and in our days. We ask that their memories will be sanctified with joy and love, that their souls will be bound up in the bond of life, a living blessing in our midst. And we say together, Amen.
And now for the presentation of colors, will the junior ROTC from Bethel High School ready themselves? Their presentation will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led once again by scholars from the Geraldine Johnson School in Bridgeport, advised by Vice Principal Ryan Howard. And following the pledge, the national anthem will be performed by the U.S. Coast Guard Cadet Glee Club, Dr. Robert Newton, director. The service would not be the same without either of your groups. So, Color Guard, please stand if you can.
Color Guard, forward, march! Color Guard, halt! Order! Colors! Ready, cut! Left! Face! Present! Colors!
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Was right
You may be seated. Now I'd like to call upon Katie Dykes, the Commissioner of the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. She and her staff steward this park and protect this memorial. With gratitude, I ask that she come forth on behalf of all the DEEP staff, past and present, to welcome you to this special place and ceremony. Commissioner?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, local and state elected officials, and all of the family members who are gathered today who lost loved ones on that fateful day, now 18 years ago, for joining us this evening. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you all to Sherwood Island State Park, our first state park, and what is truly one of the crown jewels of our state park system, and since 2002, also home to this sacred memorial, Connecticut's September 11th Memorial. The memorial is located here because this is where people gathered to view the tragedy unfold in Lower Manhattan from across Long Island Sound, and where the Connecticut National Guard staged equipment for relief efforts. It is fitting that this memorial is located in a state park. Our state parks and forests are truly remarkable places and serve valuable and different roles for the diverse array of people, 9 million or so, that visit them every year. For some, our parks and forests are for pure joy and recreation. For some, they are places to learn something and interact with the natural world. And for some, and particularly on days like today, our parks and forests are places for quiet reflection, for contemplation, and for making a connection with the spiritual world that surrounds us. I am reminded of the words of the renowned environmentalist John Muir, who said, "In every walk with nature, one receives far more than one seeks." And I hope for those gathered today, your walk here among the 9/11 Memorial at Sherwood Island State Park provides you with all that you seek. Thank you.
It's now my honor to call upon Connecticut's Governor Ned Lamont to offer personal reflections on behalf of the people of the state of Connecticut. Governor?
Good afternoon, everybody, and to the presentation of colors from the Bethel High School, to the Pledge of Allegiance from the 5th graders at Geraldine Johnson School in Bridgeport, and to the ROTC. That was beautiful. As Brian said, there's some things in your life that you never forget, and those of us a certain age will never forget, 9/11. You remember right where you were. I was right down there. There were the towers. We could see them. We could see the smoke. I was in New York City that day, and somebody ran in and said, plane hit the buildings, and thought it was a joke. Then we thought it was an accident, and then we knew it was an attack on our country. And first thing we did, like any parent would do, was we ran out and grabbed our flip phone. Your grandparents will tell you what that is. And tried to call our families. And everything was down. We couldn't call anybody. And they said, for those of us, if you're not from this state, run down, get on Metro North, and get out of here. And the doors swung open, and we all came back up to Connecticut. I got to Greenwich, where I was from, and I remember all the families, all the husband or the wife waiting to be there, waiting to see their loved one come back, and the joy you saw when they saw that they were okay. I remember all the ambulances and fire trucks lined up at the train station, waiting to help with the wounded, and there weren't many wounded. There were a lot of deaths. But Brian said something that made me think that, out of these tragedies, there are some good things. And I want you to always think about the silver lining that was there. And I remember our community coming together. I remember the purple ribbons. I remember the casserole dishes lined up outside of the homes of people that lost a loved one. I remember the outpouring, across the country. I remember how quiet it was. Do you remember there were no planes flying? It was so quiet. I remember President George W. Bush. I remember him, standing up in front of people of all faiths, including Muslim faith, and he stood on TV and looked everybody in the eye and said, we were not attacked by a religion. We were attacked by evil. We were attacked by terrorists, and I don't want you to forget that. I remember the outpouring from around the world. Probably friends and enemies alike. They knew what a tragedy this was. And maybe some of you remember the headline in Lamont, which is the French newspaper. It said, "Today we're all American. Nous sommes tous les Américains." And that was a moment where selflessness and pride and patriotism and international goodwill were preeminent. We remember hearing about the extraordinary heroism of the first responders who, without thinking twice about it, went in to save every life that they could. And that was a lot of what I remember that was the good, Brian, that came out of that. It unraveled a little bit over time. We had the invasion of Iraq. That splintered folks a little bit. We stopped eating French fries. We started eating freedom fries as we got angry a little bit with some of our neighbors. And today, almost 2 decades later, a lot of that great patriotism and camaraderie that we felt is being expressed in nationalism in some different ways. But that's not what I remember about that day. I remember extraordinary heroism. I remember the sense we as a people, we as a community, we as a state, we as a nation, and we being part of something bigger than ourselves. And I'd like each and every one of you to also take that away when you think about what the day means, and when your parents and grandparents tell you the tragedy of that day. Also remember what it meant in terms of looking out for each other and remembering who we are as Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And now a word from Connecticut's Lieutenant Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Susan Beisowitz.
Thank you so much, Brian. It is such an honor to join Governor Lamont and all of you for this very solemn occasion of remembrance. We're here to remember and pay tribute to all of those we lost as a result of the very tragic events on September 11th, 2001. And we're also here to say thank you to all of the first responders and the courageous rescue workers, many of whom sacrificed their own lives to save others. I know I'll never forget that day 18 years ago. It was a bright, sunny morning, much like this beautiful fall day today. And back then, I was serving as Connecticut's Secretary of the State. And just like in New York, there were primaries happening across Connecticut. And I started that day just like any other election day on the radio, reminding people to go vote, conducting a series of radio interviews so that people would get out and make their election choices. And on my way to the office, I learned that that first American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into the World Trade Center. And I arrived at the office in time to witness United States Airlines Flight 175 strike the second tower. And at that point, it was quite clear it wasn't an accident. We were under attack, and I started to receive countless phone calls from election officials asking if we were going to go forward. And pretty quickly, we made the decision that we would go forward with the elections because we could not let terrorists disrupt our democracy. And then something very unexpected happened. After a quiet morning with very low turnout, all of a sudden, something extraordinary happened. People started streaming to the primary polls across our state. In the uncertainty, people came out to vote. I think for a lot of people, it was something that they thought they could do in the moment out of patriotism, out of duty, and a sense that we could indeed fight terrorism by supporting freedom and democracy in our country that was under attack. The tragedies of September 11th will be forever etched in the hearts and minds of the people in our country, and particularly the people in Connecticut, because we were so very close. The lives of thousands of families changed in a single moment that day. Too many families, many of whom are here today, lost husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, parents, siblings, friends. And to all of those who have lost loved ones, our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers will always be with you. As President George Bush said, in the years following this tragedy, time is passing, yet for the United States of America, there will never be forgetting September 11th. We will remember every rescuer who died in honor. We will remember every family that lives in grief. One of those people that we lost was Bruce Eagleson. He was my kid's friend, and his wife, Gail, was my kid's 5th grade teacher. And Bruce Eagleson worked in the World Trade Center. He lived in Middlefield, and he went to New York 4 days a week to do his job. And he was credited with rescuing 10 of the people that were his employees at the Westfield shopping center at the bottom of the Trade Center. So Bruce, we remember you today. We remember everyone from our state who was lost. And I can assure you that the state of Connecticut, Governor Lamont, and I will never forget you or your loved ones and the sacrifices that you have made and the tragedies that you have faced. And we will work hard with our federal partners to ensure that such tragedies never again happen on American soil. And Governor Lamont and I want to say a special thank you to Brad Bullis, Jim Sorensen, Chris Vadas, Marie Keogh, Sydney Keogh, and all of the people at the Department of Administrative Services and the Department of Environmental Protection who worked hard to keep this park beautiful and to put together this lovely ceremony today. God bless each of you, our beautiful state, and our great nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. And now the singing of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Once again, the U.S. Coast Guard Cadet Glee Club.
Sing the glory of coming
It makes such a difference. I wanted you to hold that last chord for just a minute longer, but the goosebumps. Thank you very much. We will now have the reading of the names to remember the uniqueness of each individual life lost on 9/11. Leading this portion of the service is Jim Sorensen, with whom I had the pleasure of serving alongside in the 9/11 Office of Family Support. Following the reading of the last name, we will enter a moment of silence, followed by the playing of taps by Sergeant Christian Figueroa, U.S. Marine Corps, and then the performance of God Bless the USA by the Glee Club. As taps is played, please remember our military members who have been called upon to protect the country since 9/11, each serving a cause greater than self. Jim?
I have the privilege of introducing this evening's readers. Alexandra Blackwell, daughter of Christopher Blackwell. Donna Hughes, wife of Paul Hughes. Barbara Thurkoff, sister of Thomas Thurkoff. Chris Vadas, brother of Bradley Vadas. And Tara Hedwin Butzbaugh, sister of John Christopher Henwood.
Lawrence Abel, Brian C. Bennett, Jeffrey D. Bittner, my dad, New York City firefighter Christopher J. Blackwell, Rescue 3, Alan Patrick Boyle, Alexander Braginski, Francis Henry Frank Brennan, Thomas M. Brennan, Joseph M. Calandrillo, Edward Caldron, Sandra Campbell, Alejandro Castano, Juan Ceballos,
Stephen P. Cherry, Kevin Francis Cleary, Jeffrey W. Cloud, Keith Eugene Coleman, Scott Thomas Coleman, Margaret Connor, Kevin P. Connors, Joseph John Copo, Dolores Costa, Brian Thomas Cummins, Paul Curioli, Patrick Danahy, Anthony Damas.
Lieutenant Kevin Donnelly, FDNY. John Bruce Eagleson. Michael Egan. Ulf Ram Erickson. Eric B. Evans. Wendy R. Faulkner. Edward T. Fergus, Jr. Bradley Fetchett. Paul M. Fiore. John Fiorito. Bennett Lawson Fisher. Peter C. Fry. Richard Peter Gabriel, Sr.
Richard S. Gabrielle, James A. Gadil, Thomas E. Galvin, Oseni Mama Garba, Christopher Samuel Gardner, Peter Allen Gay, Peter Gerard Jelinas, Robert Gerlich, Lawrence Getschred, Evan Hunter Gillette, Ronald Gilligan, Stephen Lawrence Glick, Wilder A. Gomez.
Kiran Kumar Reddy Gopu. Edwin J. Graff III. Donald Green. Connecticut State Police Trooper Walter Green, Jr. James A. Greenleaf, Jr. Pedro Grahan. James D. Halverson. Sean S. Hanley. Christine Lee Hansen. Peter Burton Hansen. Sue Kim Hansen. Timothy John Hargrave. Michelle Heidenberger.
H. Joseph Heller. Robert Higley. James Hoban. Judith Florence Hoffmiller. And my big brother, John Christopher Henwood. I turned 32 on September 11th, 2001. Next week, I'll be 50. And it was very, very difficult when I became older than my brother. And so today, we grew up in Wilton, just down the street. And my whole life, we looked out at the towers from here. As a kid coming here, I had my junior prom dinner here. This is very difficult for all of us, and my heart goes out to everyone here, and I thank you all for participating. We had the pleasure of meeting my nephew, who I haven't seen in 15 years, on Sunday. So as you might imagine, it's a loaded week, but I appreciate you all sharing it. John, I love you, I miss you, and I think about you every day.
Paul R. Hughes, my husband. I miss him. I love him still. Please keep looking out for our daughter and sending ladybugs. William Christopher Hunt. Thomas Edward Hines. John F. Iskian. Ariel Lewis Jacobs. Michael Grady Jacobs.
Mark Stephen Jardine. Robert Thomas Jordan. Richard M. Keene. Maurice Patrick Kelly. William Hill Kelly, Jr. Amy King. Glenn Davis Kerwin. Stephen LaMancha. Gary E. Lasco. Robert A. Lawrence, Jr.
Joseph A. Lenahan. Adam J. Lewis. Stephen B. Lilienthal. Gary W. Lozier. Michael J. Lyons. Edward Teddy F. Maloney. Ada Mason. Kevin Michael McCarthy. Juliana McCourt. Ruth McCourt. Eamon Micanini. Michael G. McGinty. Francis McGuinn. And William J. Meehan, Jr.
Escadar Melicu. Raymond Joseph Metz III. Joel Miller. Michael M. Miller. Cheryl Ann Moniak. Lindsay S. Morehouse. Jude Musa, Cesar A. Murillo, Christopher William White Murphy, Daniel Robert Nolan, Robert W. Noonan, Timothy M. O'Brien, Scott J. O'Brien, James Andrew O'Grady, Christopher Orgilowitz,
Margaret Quinn Orioski, Thomas Anthony Palazzo, James Matthew Patrick, Mike A. Pelletier, Joshua Piver, Roger Mark Brasweiler, Jean Destrian Roger, Sean P. Rooney, Michael C. Rothberg, Jason E. Sabag, Jesus Sanchez, Stacy Lee Sanders, Sean Schilke, John B. Schwartz, Randy Scott, Barbara A. Shaw, Michael John Simon, Heather Lee Smith, Diane Bullis Snyder.
Gregory T. Spagnoletti, George E. Spencer III, Derek J. Stadovicus, Greg William Staub, Andrew Sturgiopoulos, Madeline Sweeney, Michael C. Taru, my brother Thomas F. Thurkoff Jr., and my two friends from Massachusetts, Ted Hennessy and Paul Friedman, Eric Raymond Thorpe, Amy E. Toyin, Tyler Ugolin, Jonathan J. Uman, Alan V. Upton.
My brother, Bradley H. Bottas. Miss you every day, and I love you. Edward Raymond Vanacore, Frederick Verace, James Thomas Waters, Jr., Jeffrey David Weiner, Candace Lee Williams, John P. Williamson, William Eben Wilson, David H. Winton, Christopher W. Wodencheck, Martin Phillips Wolforth, John Works, Edward P. York, and Charles A. Zion.
Please join me in having a moment of silence. Thank you.
Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget all those who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
You may be seated. To conclude our service, I call upon Allison Buttrick Patton of Saugatuck Congregational Church, Westport, Connecticut. Her words will be the final ones spoken for the service. At their conclusion, family members will be directed to follow Governor Lamont and Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysewicz out to the Living Memorial to place flowers and visit the site. Please remain seated until directed. Thank you for sharing this evening together. Pastor.
This evening, we have taken time apart. Time to remember, time to grieve, time to name, time to honor, time to reflect. Now, it is time to turn our hearts to the world that awaits. Time to respond to the pain of the past by rededicating ourselves to our highest values. Time to banish fear and to embrace hope. Time to recommit to infusing our world with greater compassion, wonder, and joy. Time to practice curiosity and connection. Time to work together, to build communities in which all people can thrive. So go from this place, grateful for the memories we hold dear, more determined to live lives worthy of those we miss, ready to serve. And may the Holy One who hears our cries, inspires our vision, and empowers all our good work, bless, keep, and guide us all. Amen.